Welcome, everybody, to Ernie Racing News. Today is May 8th, 2024. I am your host, Marcel Ernie, and we're going over the top stories of today, starting with the Germans. The Germans are mandating military service, guys, and the conservatives voted for it. This story was done May 7th. Berlin. The German conservatives on May 7th voted in favor of restoring compulsory military service as the country aims to revive its army in the wake of Russia's legible invasion of Ukraine. The CDU-SCU alliance, currently Germany's largest opposition party, approved a motion tabled by its youth wing at a party conference calling for a temporary return to conscription. Can you believe it, guys? The Conservatives have already pledged to introduce a year of compulsory community service for young people, which could be completed in the army or by working in the civil society. But the youth wing argued that this would take too long to introduce and put forward a period of compulsory service for a limited number of people as a stopgap. According to the resolution, the German army, known as the Bundeswehr, would determine its needs every year, and a corresponding proportion of eligible citizens would be called upon. The proposal was approved with a large majority at a party conference on May 7th, conservative politician Sarah Goller wrote on social media. Mr. Johannes Winkel, chairman of the youth wing, said, "We must not continue to leave the defense of our democracy to the people of hope." Fucking joke. He said compulsory military service was a short-term and realistic option to tackle the personal problems of the bourgeoisie. Germany suspended compulsory military service in 2011, but the conflict in Ukraine has reignited the debate around whether young men and women should be required to fight for their country. And you know what? You're not being required to fight for your country. You're being required to fight for these fucktard liberal politicians, these warmongering liberal and conservative military-industrial complex politicians who want you to die and fight and die for their political interests, their own personal political interests and gain and superiority complex, guys. Freaking ridiculous. I would never fight for my bullshit politicians. Absolutely not. And the compulsory military service would be, quote, a visible sign to Russia and others, end quote, that Germany is seriously prepared to defend itself. Yeah, what a joke. To defend democracy, like Ukraine, how it's forcing conscription, and it says it's illegal to film the conscription squad that's stealing its citizens in the streets, and how there's no elections, and how they're forced to die. Yeah, sounds like a great democracy. Let's move on to the next story. Okay, guys, Ernie Racing News, May 8th. Next story from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Dear President Trump, I'm grateful to you for calling attention to the rigged polling methodologies that biased DNC-influenced media have used against you. We have this concern too, and I'm happy to show you the deceptive methodologies used by DNC-allied pollsters who pretend that I'm a single digits. You have correctly characterized these as, quote, fake polls, end quote. This is why we did our own poll with Zogby, the largest and most accurate poll of this election cycle. We had Zogby ask about head-to-head matchups. Number 1, you versus President Biden. Number 2, me versus President Biden. Number 3, me versus you. The results? You beat President Biden handily. I crushed him as well by even more. And against each other, I beat you in a nail-biter. In a three-way, you are ahead, but I'm coming up strong. 2 new polls, CNN and Quinnipiac, have me above the 15% debate threshold. Another, Activate, has me at 26% among young voters. And you and I are tied among America's 70 million independents. I'm also drawing a lot of voters from your former supporters. They are upset that you blew up the deficit, shut down their businesses during COVID, and filled your administration with swamp creatures. Sidebar. I'm also, and a lot of the Trump supporters are really upset with Trump supporting the military-industrial complex, the wars through Israel, the military-industrial complex. He's supporting that now. Let's continue. So I'd like to make you an offer. We're both going to be speaking at the upcoming Libertarian Convention on May 24th, 25th. It's perfect neutral territory for you and me to have a debate where you can defend your record for your wavering supporters. You yourself have said you're not afraid to debate me as long as my poll numbers are decent. Well, they are. In fact, I am the only presidential candidate in history who has polled ahead of both major party candidates in head-to-head races. So let's meet at the Libertarian Convention and show the American public that at least two of the major candidates aren't afraid to debate each other. I asked the convention organizers, and they are game for us to use their time to bring the American people to debate they deserve. Sincerely, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This was May 7th, currently at 4.5 million views. And he replied to his post with the CNN showing from April 18th, 2024 and last year's October 27th. So April poll is 33%, Joe Biden, the Democrats. Donald Trump, 42%. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., 16%. And then others do not plan to vote, 1%. And then back from October of last year, there was 35% for Biden from the Democrats. Donald Trump had 41%, and Kennedy is consistently at 16%. And he also shows the, the Quinnipiac poll. So you have total Biden 37, Trump 37, Kennedy 16. And so they break it down by age and everything else. Okay, guys, here's Ernie Racy News. Oh, block that crap. Here we are, Ernie Racy News again, May 8th, 2024. Today's next story, Ukrainians risk jail for filming mobilization. Byline is, disrupting the work of enlistment officers is a crime against the military. The Kremlinskaya region officials have warned. Anyone recording the work of recruiters is interfering with military matters and could be imprisoned for up to 8 years, officials in one Ukrainian region have warned. Kiev recently embarked on a new wave of mobilization to replenish battlefield losses, the meat grinder losses, which Moscow has estimated over 110,000 just this year. That's a lot of dead men and a few women. In western Ukraine's Khmelnytskyi region, draft evasion has apparently warranted a statement from the local officials. Quote, sharing information on social networks and messenger communities about the locations and movements of the Khmelnytskyi region recruiters as they deliver notices to citizens eligible for conscription leads to the disclosure of forms and methods, end quote. The Recruitment Center press service posted on Facebook on Monday. Such activities are prosecutable under the law banning, quote, the undermining of the authority of the armed forces of Ukraine, end quote, and obstructing official military businesses during martial law. The recruitment office added, anyone convicted on these charges could be imprisoned for up to 8 years, they said. Many Ukrainians seeking to evade draft notices have long used group chats and apps such as WhatsApp or Telegram. The users would alert each other to the movements of some recruiters and schedules of summons. Some of these groups have had as many as 100,000 members, BBC reported in August of 2023. Recent amendments to mobilization rules enacted by President Vladimir Actor Zelensky last month have lowered the conscription age to 25 and automated registration and notices, among other things. In response, Ukrainians seeking to escape the draft have begun fleeing the country. On Monday, the Ukrainian Border Service captured a man who tried to flee into Hungary dressed as a woman. Haha, how ironic, right? Meanwhile, 6 men drowned while trying to swim across the Tisza River into Romania, according to local media. 4 bodies were reportedly found on the Ukrainian side and 2 inside Romania. The Ukrainian Border Service acknowledged only 1 death, but said this was the 25th such incident over the past 2 years. Ukrainian Border Service spokesman Andrei Demchenko said in a recent interview that the agency stops 120 to 150 people from leaving the country every day. People are running away, guys. They don't want to die for this military-industrial complex NATO war machine, and why would you? Again, these fucking Democrat, deep state, liberal, warmongering politicians. You're not going to die for those asshats. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said last week that Ukraine lost more than 111,000 soldiers in 2024 alone. Last month, he estimated Ukraine's losses since the start of hostilities in February of 2022 at nearly 500,000 troops. All right, guys, let's on the next story. This is Ernie Racy News. Ernie Racing News, guys. Again, May 8th, 2024. Boy Scouts of America to become Scouting America. Oh, here you have people don't want to... You can't be in an organization called Boy Scouts if you're not a boy. What a joke, guys. This rebranding is an absolute liberal joke. May 7th, the Boy Scouts of America today announced that it will be rebranding to Scouting America. That sounds super lame, reflecting the organization's ongoing commitment to welcome every youth and family in America to experience the benefits of scouting. The change will go into effect on February 8th, 2025, the 115th anniversary. The announcement comes as the organization celebrates the 5th anniversary of welcoming girls into Cub Scouting and Scouts BSA program. I don't think these girls and these boys care if it's called Boy Scouts. Like, get me a break. Jesus, Eagle Scout bullshit. Quote, through our name will be new, our mission remains unchanged. Yeah, said President A. Crone. More than 130 million Americans have been through scouting programs since its founding in 1910. And this is a long-time company, and they're just throwing it away with the rebranding. It's like the liberals trying to change their name. And currently more than 1 million youth, including both men and women, are served by 477,000 dedicated adult volunteers and local councils through the country. To date, more than 2.75 million youth have earned Scouting's highest rank of Eagle Scout. Yeah, and here you guys going screwing it up, Scouting America. This is Ernie Racing News, guys. And moving on, Ernie Racing News, guys. May 8th, Israel seizes Gaza's vital Rafah crossing, but the U.S. says it isn't the full invasion many fear. I don't think that Israel will approve the deal. Israel doesn't care about us. And Netanyahu only cares about being at the top. We are not very optimistic because it has been months and they kept giving us hope and telling us tomorrow after tomorrow a truce will take place. And as you can hear the sounds of drones and blasts, Yikes. As you can hear the sounds of drones and blasts, this was happening all night long. The poor people are being displaced from one area to another, and there are no safe zones. There are no safe zones in all of Gaza. The Israeli government will stall like every time. Hamas agreed to the proposal presented by Israel, and they said they will send a delegation. But then they bombed them in Rafah. God knows if Netanyahu will send one or not, because he cares less about the world or the U.S. Okay, guys, so here's the story. Israeli troops seized control of Gaza's vital Rafah border crossing on Tuesday in what the White House described as a limited operation as fears mount of a full-scale invasion of the southern city, and talks with Hamas over a ceasefire and hostage release remain on a knife's edge. The UN warned of a potential collapse of the flow of aid to Palestinians from the Rafah crossing from Egypt and other main crossings into Gaza. Kerem Shalom from Israel at a time when UN officials say northern Gaza is experiencing full-blown famine. The Israeli foray came hours after of whiplash and now 7-month-old Israel-Hamas war, with the military group saying Monday it accepted a ceasefire proposal that Israel insisted fell short of its own core demands. The point is Netanyahu, he knows he's gone. The country, Israel, is revolting against him. And he has to run it out until everyone's dead, until he's dead himself. Like, there's no ceasefire for Netanyahu. Continuing, the high-stakes diplomatic moves and military brinkmanship left a glimmer of hope for a deal to bring at least a pause to the war, which has killed more than 34,700 Palestinians, according to local health officials, and has devastated the Gaza Strip. So, talking about the ceasefire proposal, Hamas said Monday it accepted an Egyptian Qatari ceasefire proposal, but Israel said the deal did not meet its core demands and it was pushing ahead with plans to invade the southern Gaza city of Rafah. So what are their core demands? From what I read earlier, the core demands is that we will never leave, we will never not have our military in the Gaza. So this is never going to end. That's their demand. On campuses, German police on Tuesday broke up a protest by several hundred pro-Palestinian activists who had occupied a courtyard at Berlin's Free University earlier this day. And in the U.S., police cleared a pro-Palestinian tent encampment at the University of Chicago. So looking at the map here, Israel seizes Rafah crossing. Residents urged to flee to humanitarian safe zone. Well, their safe zone keeps moving, right? Oh, there's Rafah at the bottom. Israeli tanks seize control of Gaza's vital Rafah border crossing into Egypt. And so now there's people of no way in, no way out. By capturing the Rafah crossing, Israel gained full control over the entry and exit of people and goods for the first time since it withdrew soldiers and settlers from Gaza in 2005, though it has long maintained a blockade of the coastal enclave in cooperation with Egypt. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the capture of the crossing an important step toward dismantling Hamas military and governing capabilities, and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said Israel would, quote, deepen, end quote, the Rafah operation if talks on the hostages deal failed. What Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't tell you is there's no way for them to actually win in terms of dismantling Hamas. It's an impossible task. It's not possible. And he's going to want to be there forever and he's running his military-industrial complex. He's conquering. He's a conqueror now. Here you go. Here's the White House National Security Council. Oh, John Kirby. John Kirby. Remember him, guys? He's like, we do not have weapons we do not have chemical, biological facilities in Ukraine. That's a bunch of malarkey. And a week later, Victoria Nuland, well, we do have biological weapon research facilities in Ukraine, and we're worried the Russians will get their hands on it. Bunch of liars. They're just a lying propaganda mouthpiece. That's all. So anyways, the mouthpiece for propaganda said the operation along the Gaza-Egypt border in eastern Rafah was not a full-blown Israeli invasion of the city that the President Joe Biden has repeatedly warned against on humanitarian grounds. Kirby said Israel described it as, quote, an operation of limited scale and duration, end quote, aimed at cutting off Hamas arms struggling. Kirby expressed optimism about the ceasefire negotiations, saying Israel and Hamas, quote, should be able to close the remaining gaps, end quote, to complete an agreement. Yeah. And moving forward, the looming operation threatens to widen a rift between Israel and its main backer, the United States, which says it is concerned over the fate of around 1.3 million Palestinians crammed into Rafah, most of whom fled fighting elsewhere. And here's a quote from maybe what we heard earlier. Netanyahu only cares about coming out on top. He doesn't care about children. I don't think he'll agree to a deal. As this woman has her family packed up while Israel strikes rage among the plumes of smoke above. Okay, guys, Ernie Racing News again, May 8th, 2024. Oh, you can't even see the story. Here it is. AstraZeneca withdraws the C19er, vaccine, the shot worldwide, citing surplus of newer shots. Pharmaceutical company says newer shots led to decline in demand for AstraZeneca arm jabs, which is no longer being manufactured or supplied. I wonder why. Here's May 8th, guys. We're going to call them, what do we call them? We're going to call these jabs arm twisters for sake of censor tube. You can't even read an article about this garbage. AstraZeneca began the worldwide withdrawal of its C19er arm twisters due to a surplus of available updated arm twisters that target new variants of the arm twisterette. The announcement follows the pharmaceutical company in March voluntarily withdrawing its European Union marketing authorization, which is the approval to market a medicine in member states. Now, I'm just jumping ahead. Although the V19er was found to be safe and effective overall, it carried the risk of a rare but serious side effect known as thrombosis, or TTS. It occurred in about 2 to 3 people per 100,000 from the AstraZeneca. And moving forward, this is, of course, that beautiful quote that these companies love to jump on. Oh yeah, don't worry about all this problems we just did, because, quote, it has saved millions of lives that should not be forgotten. What are the other things should not be forgotten, you heinous giants. Okay, guys, moving on to the next story at Ernie Racing News, May 8th, 2024. TikTok sues the government. TikTok is suing the federal government over a recently passed ban on the social network. They said that they would, and they did, get out the popcorn. The lawsuit claims that the bill violates the constitutional protection of free speech in the name of national security. We all know that the ban has nothing to do with national security. I've got a bridge to sell you if you still believe that. Quote, for the first time in history, Congress has enacted a law that subjects a single named speech platform to a permanent nationwide ban and bars every American from participating in a unique online community with more than 1 billion people worldwide, TikTok says in the suit. Let's look at it. All right, here it is. It was filed on the 5th. What is that? May 5th, 2024, one of 70 pages. The United States Court of Appeals for District of Columbia Circuit, TikTok Incorporated, and ByteDance Lit petitioners versus the Merrick B. Garland in his official capacity as Attorney General of the United States. 1. Congress is taking the unprecedented step to expressly singling out and banning TikTok, a vibrant online forum for protected speech and expression used by 170 million Americans to create, share, and view videos over the internet. For the first time in history, Congress has enacted a law that subjects a single named speech platform to a permanent nationwide ban and bars every American from participating in a unique online community with more than 1 billion people worldwide. Number 2, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Application Act is unconstitutional. Banning TikTok is so obviously unconstitutional, in fact, that even the Act's sponsors recognize that reality and therefore have tried mightily to depict the law not as a ban at all, but merely a regulation of TikTok's ownership. According to its sponsors, the Act responds to TikTok's ultimate ownership by ByteDance Lit, a company with Chinese subsidiaries whose employees support various ByteDance businesses, including TikTok. They claim that the act is not a ban because it offers ByteDance a choice: divest TikTok's U.S. business or be shut down. Number 3, but in reality there is no choice. The qualified divestiture demanded by the act to allow TikTok to continue operating in the United States is simply not possible, not commercially, not technologically, not legally, and certainly not on the 270-day timeline required by the act. Petitioners have repeatedly explained this to the U.S. government, and sponsors of the act were aware that divestment is not possible. There is no question. The act will force a shutdown of TikTok by January 19, 2025, silencing the 170 million Americans who use the platform to communicate in ways that cannot be replicated elsewhere. Sidebar, guys, just like the real Canadian cowboy. This TikTok's going to be shut down. No more real Canadian cowboy unless he moves to a different platform. Number 4, of course, even if a qualified divestiture were feasible, and the act would still be extraordinary and unconstitutional assertion of power. If upheld, it would allow the government to decide the company may no longer own and publish the innovative and unique speech platform it created. If Congress can do this, it can circumvent the First Amendment by invoking national security and ordering the publisher of any individual newspaper or website to sell to avoid being shut down. And for TikTok, any such divestiture would disconnect Americans from the rest of the global community on a platform devoted to sharing content. An outcome fundamentally at odds with the Constitution's commitment to both free speech and individual liberty. Number 5, there are good reasons why Congress has never before enacted a law like this. Consistent with the First Amendment's guarantee of freedom of expression, the United States has long championed a free and open internet, and the Supreme Court has repeatedly recognized that speech, quote, conveyed over the internet, end quote, fully qualifies for the First Amendment's protections. All right, guys, this goes on and on and on. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for like freaking, 77 pages. So, and again, the reasoning. You're welcome to I'll link it in the description. This is Ernie Racing News, guys, May 8th, 2024. Like, subscribe, and share to help beat that CensorTube Google totalitarian algorithm. Thanks. Bye.